Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. My name is Anass, I'm a final year medical student studying in London. Today I want to talk about an important topic which I don't think I've covered in detail in any of my videos. And that's to do with why we sometimes feel unmotivated to do the things that we need to do. And in particular when it comes to feeling motivated to study, right? So I read a book about it which was actually quite useful, and then we'll talk about some specific steps that you can take to overcome it. So what causes you to become unmotivated, and then what can you do in order to overcome it? That's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to do this in a bit of like a vlog format because this is a bit more fun. So yeah, but at the moment I'm running a bit behind schedule, so I need to go into placement and yeah, I mean I don't need to talk much about that because we've talked about it in like 2 videos, so let's jet there. Alright, so I've just finished my morning clinic. I saw a couple of patients. It was useful. I learned a lot. It is always, I mean, I feel like GP has been one of the most insightful ones. Maybe because like I'm very familiar with GP. Like I used to work in GPs for ages before even uni. So I was allowed to work quite independently, and I feel like when you work more independently, you learn more. But okay, so that aside, we have a very specific topic today. Essentially, all of these ideas that I'm going to present to you came from a book that I read a couple of weeks ago. I think about it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. This book is called The War of Art. So now I know there's another book called The Art of War, and that is a very different topic. Even from the name of the book itself, you can kind of deduce that. It is to do with the kind of internal struggle, the internal war that someone goes through when they're involved in the arts. But I think that the principles from this book can be applied to anything, and it's in particular when it comes to someone being a student and trying to study and trying to do things like that. So the main thesis of this author, whose name is Steven Pressfield, in this book is that every single person who is involved or who needs to do some kind of task, so whether it be involvement in the arts, whether it be starting and continuing and maintaining a business, being an entrepreneur, starting a project, studying and doing work, finishing research projects, and also like content creation and arts and all of those things. Every single person will experience some form of resistance. And he defines resistance as a negative energy or negative force that stops a person from fulfilling the tasks that they need to do or fulfilling their dreams. And that is something that we're going to talk about a bit later because I don't want to sit here and waffle all day. One of the most interesting things I think I got from this book, and in terms of the topic of resistance, is that even if you're an expert in an area, like say I'm a big writer, I'm an author, or I'm into the arts, or I do loads of like public speaking and things like that, even with all that expertise, those people still experience a huge amount of resistance. No matter how experienced you become in an area, no matter how experienced you are in public speaking, no matter how experienced you might be in business, you might still feel, nervous before doing a speech. You might still feel the anxiety. And so what does that say about us who are 18 to 25-year-olds and we're not really experts in anything at the moment? We're going to experience some resistance too. How does resistance apply to you as a student? So let's give the classic kind of scenario. You have an essay due. Okay, great. Yeah, we out here in London. That's just how it is out here. So let's say you have an essay due next week. It's worth 20% of your grade. Now you wake up in the morning and you know that you should be working on this essay, but the first thing is you start to have the feeling of not wanting to do it, right? It's just like an internal feeling, you don't feel interested in starting this essay, you don't feel interested in the topic, and it's just this internal feeling. All right, my trainer's here, so let's jump on it first. And the second thing that will happen is that you'll start to come up with excuses of why you don't need to do it right now, why you can put it off until next week. Or you start rationalizing it, things like, oh, actually it's not worth that much, of the degree is only 25%, I've got 75% from other stuff. So you start to rationalize reasons and also come up with other things that you might find in that case you feel are more important than this singular task that needs to be done this week. Once you've started to come up with excuses and rationalized it, what ends up happening is you open your laptop, you open Netflix, and you watch 3 seasons or 4 seasons of Prison Break in one day, and you do that until the very last day, which is the deadline, and you wish you should have done it on the first day. So that is all caused by this thing called resistance. And I've given the definition, but actually resistance can come in many forms. Okay, so in some people, resistance can come in the form of self-doubt, feeling like you won't be able to succeed in that thing. In other people, it can be fear of failure, fear of what other people are going to think. But specifically in this scenario, and when it comes to actually being a student and getting on with your work, the biggest way that resistance affects people is in the form of procrastination. So the main thing here is not actually to try and eliminate resistance, because everyone will feel it in some form or another, and it will never really go away. The key thing is to recognize when it's starting to impact your work rate and how well you're doing, when it's starting to impact the tasks that you need to complete. So how can you overcome resistance? Personally, one of the most useful ways I found in order to overcome resistance is to, in my mind, increase the stakes. So back when I was doing A-levels or high school, I found that I didn't actually achieve, or I didn't do as well as I wanted to, and that was because I was procrastinating a lot, essentially. And only when uni began did I start to actually change my ways. And the way I changed that is by increasing the stakes in my mind. So in order to study medicine with the grades I had a few options. Either I could have gone abroad and studied medicine somewhere in Eastern Europe, or I could go into biomedical science and achieve some high grades and then get into medicine through the graduate entry route. Now, I didn't know much about this graduate entry route, so for me it was a massive risk going into that. And so in my mind, suddenly the stakes were very high. If I didn't do that well in that degree and I didn't get the necessary percentage, that would have been the end of that specific goal of getting into medicine. So in my mind, the stakes were very, very high. And since I started thinking like that, I just bulldozed through exams, practical exams, essays, and it was because I felt like if I didn't make it now, it would never happen. So the stakes were high. The other strategy that you can use in order to overcome resistance is by habit formation. Look, you need to treat your life and your studies as a professional, not as an amateur. Let's take the example of a professional and an amateur squash player. The professional squash player gets up for training every single day, and they have training every single day, every morning, every afternoon, weekends. They're never really, or the likelihood of them getting up and going into training is never really affected by how they feel in the morning. They might even turn up if they're ill. Whereas the amateur plays, like for example me, I'm some amateur squash player, yeah. I only play on Wednesday afternoons. I might play some weekends, and recently it's been like I play every 3 months, yeah, once every 3 months. That's what an amateur squash player does. See, the professional squash player might still feel resistance, right? They might wake up in the morning and feel like they don't want to go into training. They might feel tired. They might feel unmotivated. They might feel self-doubt. But that doesn't stop them from going into training. It doesn't stop them from competing. Okay, now, you might feel like this whole professional amateur business doesn't really apply to you. You feel like you can't relate to it. You wake up every morning and you brush your teeth. Every evening you brush your teeth. At least I hope you do. I'm assuming most people do that. So, do you need to be motivated in order to do that? Do you need to feel? Do you ever wake up in the morning, yes guys, today I feel motivated and I'm gonna put on my agenda, on my to-do list, brush teeth in the morning, brush teeth in the evening? That doesn't happen to anyone. You do it every day, every evening without fail. And so I think all in all, I think that is enough to kind of support the thought that, you know what, anyone can overcome resistance by following the right steps. So number one, by recognizing that feeling before you complete a task is resistance stopping you from doing what you need to do. Number two is by finding out what is it that motivates you. Right? Are you motivated by competition? Are you motivated by growth? Are you motivated by love? Are you motivated by achievement? Yeah. And then also treating your life as a professional, not as an amateur, and then building habits so that resistance doesn't affect you as much anymore. So I hope you liked that video. Obviously this is a bit of a different type where I'm like walking around and addressing one singular topic than just like vlogging for the sake of vlogging. And also, you know what, I'm in the same placement. I've been on the same placement for 5 weeks. I can't talk about the same thing every day, you know what I'm saying? But I hope you enjoyed that. If you like the video, then make sure you like it, comment, subscribe, follow the gram if you want. Yeah, obviously that's up to you, and safe.